as a little bit of context, I know this is a keynote, but I don't really do keynotes. I do what I call heart notes. So let's pretend as if you were to come to my office and you're just right across the table from me, and let's just have a conversation about this. So when I think about the Great Resignation, the Great Reshuffle, the things that we're feeling today, all the things that are making us, keeping us awake at night, I think there's an incongruence that's happening right now. It's an incongruence between the way that the systems were, and they were set. When you think about our recognition systems, when we think about our development systems, those were all set around the idea of the individual contributor, not the team. There were individual contributor. We go back all the way to the Ford Model T assembly line. It's how much does that individual produce? And then, so our reward systems and our development systems and our opportunities for growth are all set up around individual contributions. But the world has become so much more interdependent, so much more complex. It's 100 plus years ago. And in order to match and address the complexities of both the opportunities and the challenges that we face today, we actually have to think about systems that recognize team contributions. So when you think about it, we have moved from a linear thinking type of world into an ecosystem type of world. What do I mean by that? It means instead of just looking at the first order effect, which is the individual contributor, we also have to look at the second, third, and fourth order effects. In the larger context outside of HR, here's an analogy. So a few years ago, I was listening to my friend Rob Nail, who is the former CEO of Singularity University. And he asked a simple question. He said, if you were in the energy drink industry, what would be one of the threats that could potentially disrupt your entire industry? And so people answered like, well, maybe having a patch on the head that can just give you energy, or new types of technology, or even new types of drinks that enter the market. And Rob blew us all away with what he was about to say next, which is, well, one of the greatest disruptor to the energy drink industry is actually self-driving cars. Because when you look at when energy drinks are being consumed, they're usually during, because people are going on long drives. So self-driving cars, this industry, the automobile industry, which is not even adjacent to the energy drink industry, can actually disrupt the energy drink industry. That's a third, fourth order effect that is just as critical as a first order effect. So when we think about how we look at those challenges, we require the hearts and imaginations of our people. And so how we reward and how we incentivize the unleashing of those hearts and imaginations, and clarifying the sense of mission and purpose for our people, of course, our systems, I think, is in need of a rethink. So today, what I like to do is give you a simple idea and then a simple action, because we don't have very much time. And then you can connect with me on LinkedIn, or even subscribe to my Leadership Playbook newsletter, Unleashing Superpowers, on Substack, to learn more. So here's the simple idea that I've been working on. It's this idea of superpowers. Yes, as Mihail said early on in his introduction, you all have superpowers. But my question to you is, we all have superpowers. Do you know what yours are? In my coaching and in my work in creating enterprise development systems within companies, one pattern that keeps surfacing over and over again is this idea that we tend to focus on our deficiencies, our areas for improvement. But when it comes to our proficiencies, we actually have quite a big blind spot around those. And I think it's a cause of two things. One is, as high achievers, we're always playing our mistakes over and over again. So we're always thinking about how can we do better? What can we change? But we're not thinking about what we should double down on. What are the superpowers that we should be actually focusing on and developing even more. And then the other thing is we're in a society that actually propagates that. So along the superpowers analogy, it would be, think about this type of conversation. It's a Superman. Great job flying in the skies. That's awesome. But look at Aquaman. Aquaman, he can swim in the sea. So Superman, maybe you should take swim lessons. Oh, and Aquaman, great job swimming, but look at Superman, he can fly. Maybe you should take flying lessons. Now that analogy, when we think about it, is a bit silly. But in fact, those type of conversations happen in our organizations in informal settings all the time with managers and their teammates. I've been on the receiving end of those type of conversations. And why is it that way? Why is it that way? This idea, that type of comparison trap assumes that we're in a world of individualistic, individual contributors. But when we're in a world of team contributors, this idea of looking at superpowers and what are the instinctive or innate strengths that makes each individual inimitable. What is it that they bring to the table that we should double down on? And then bringing in that collective superpowers is going to be what's a game changer. So I've defined a bit of what superpowers are. Those are innate or instinctive strengths. So they're different from traditional strengths. Traditional strengths, they're things that people are good at, but superpowers also give you a sense of energy. And because they are either innate or they've been built up over practice over a period of time, they're not easily imitable, right? They're not easily imitable. And every individual has at least one, but all of us, I believe, have a range of superpowers that that are remaining to be discovered, because the situation for discovering them or applying them haven't yet arisen. I didn't discover one of my superpowers until I was in my late 20s. Growing up, I was that kid who loves just coming home and reading a book. I didn't think I would be good with people. And so it wasn't until my late 20s when, after I've been a co-founder of the Coach K Leadership and Ethics Center at the Fuqua School of Business for a few years, that the dean at that time said, Sanyin, we need you to know how to talk to CEOs. I thought, let's learn how to speak and talk to CEOs and ask questions and pick up the phone and engage in the conversation. And to me, that's when it hit that engaging with people is like, just as much as I love discovering the awesomeness in books, engaging with people is about discovering the awesomeness in each other. And that's when I started learning about, when I see the awesomeness, I love connecting the dots among people. And so one of my superpowers that I didn't discover until much later, because the circumstance for me needing to apply that is being a super connector. And so when we think about it, there are tons of superpowers that you all have that the situation just simply haven't arisen yet. And guess what? This period of great disruption that we're in, and this period of where we have to rethink and reinvent, that is an opportunity for us to discover new superpowers. Yes, we might have to let go of using some of the skill sets that have enabled us to succeed up to now. But now it's about it. Part of that unlearning might be about learning and discovering new superpowers in our individuals and also in our collective teams. Now, in the idea of superpowers, I group them into 3 different categories. There's the physical superpowers. You see that in the great athletes, the great, the sports. There's also intellectual superpowers. We know those people who are naturally gifted at mathematics, or who can look at a financial spreadsheet and in 1 second just figure out, oh, this is where it's going. Or they're very good at communicating visually. My friend Aisha Brazil is one of those brilliant visual communicators. But there's also a third category that we haven't really dived into as a society, and that's emotional superpowers. We all know, and so here's a few examples of emotional superpowers. We all know those people on our teams that when you walk into a room, suddenly everything feels like it's going to be okay. Or, you look at someone like there, someone like my friend Shane Battier, who is a great basketball player. He was a two-time national champion. Now, Shane's individual stats were not spectacular compared to that of his teammates, but the entire wins for the team go way up when Shane is playing on the court versus when he is off. Because one of Shane's emotional superpowers is that of being an emotional glue. When he's on the court, everyone gels. We may also know those people on our team that when they're in the room, they can pose those type of questions that suddenly help us make stepwise leaps. They're catalysts. And we certainly know of those who are mentors who just have this natural capacity, not only for teaching and sharing, but they are also the culture carriers in our organization. Where does it show up on their performance evals? These type of superpowers. When can we recognize these type of superpowers? Very rarely, right? And yet, as we're moving into an era where our customers and our employees in this great disruption, great reshuffle, great resignation, they're hungry for more humanity in our organizations. Why wouldn't we recognize and truly see beneath the surface of what we're used to seeing and recognize those emotional superpowers? We recognize physical superpowers in sports. We recognize those intellectual superpowers in our everyday performance evals, but let's also recognize the emotional superpowers and start calling them out. Now, if superpowers is one of our biggest blind spots, how do we discover them? It's very simple. It's we can't discover them by ourselves. We actually need others to help us see them, just as we need others to help us see our blind spots. So when I run enterprise programs or when I'm coaching entire executive leadership teams, I run them through a simple superpowers exercise where we just go around the room and through collective reflection, have everyone tell each other what their superpowers, what that person's superpowers are. And we would see so many surprises, as so imagine if it were you, we have your entire team going around and talking about your superpowers. And I also have a language for a set of questions, the scan tool, for helping people who aren't used to thinking about superpowers be able to clarify or articulate what another person's superpowers are. But that's the idea of superpowers, is we, in a world of disruption where we need to be unleashing the humane organization, we need to focus on, we have to develop a culture of focusing on proficiencies and not only on areas of improvement, but recognizing what is it that we should be doubling down on? What are the unique, innate, instinctive, inimitable strengths, the superpowers that individuals have and our collective team has? And then going further to be able to not only recognize the type of superpowers we're used to seeing, that of the individualistic contributor, but recognizing the emotional superpowers. And then I leave you with this one final action, which is rethinking the assists. So I said earlier in the very beginning that we have to think about this second, third, and fourth order effects, not just the first order effects. Well, that second, third, fourth order effects is the world of assists. So in the sports world, for example, in ice hockey, we record assists. So we record the goals, but we also record who is making that first assist, who's the person who's passing that puck over to the person who's making the goal. But in hockey, they also record the second assist. Who is the person passing the puck to the next person who's passing that puck to the person who's making the goal. And the first assist, the second assist, and the goal, they all count. They have all equal weight. Imagine what it would be like if we take on that simple practice of when there's a win and we're celebrating a win. Small wins or big wins in our organization, or we are commending that salesperson for closing that sale, that we all create this habit of recognizing, it's not only we don't win by ourselves. We actually recognize the first assist and the second assist or the third assist, however we want to play it, and that those assists matter and those assists are also recorded and recognized. Imagine how much of a team environment that would be, because it's through teams that we are able to truly capture the type of opportunities and address the massive complex challenges that we're facing in the world today. And that's how we can truly create and unleash the human possibilities in a humane organization.